that's certainly suggested by the size and the scale and the style of the factory. I mean, they built that like really a baronial mansion almost.
Absolutely,
isn't it, really?
yeah. So, and that was, the architect was Robert Armstrong, who again is reflected here in the, and is buried here in the churchyard.
So he was the architect of the factory?
He was the architect of that. He was also the architect of the Presbyterian Church in Ballyshannon.
I see.
And he was also the architect of the Manor House outside of Enniskillen.
Right. So he turned his hand from being an architect to managing this whole enterprise?
Yes. A man of great energy and vision. And so also was his wife and his daughter. And there's a very sad story there regarding his daughter, Catherine, because she married what was considered beneath her.
Right.
She married, and she's buried at Slavin, one of the other churches in this group. Yeah. And she was a poet, she was a musician, and she designed a number of items for the pottery, which actually were never produced until her father was dead.
I see.
You know, which is very sad, actually.
Were they estranged?
Yes,
I see. Because
she never.
He disapproved of her marriage.
He disapproved of the marriage, and they were married, I think, in Donegal town, in the church there, and he never recognised her from the day she married. Oh dear. Which is awfully sad, really.
It is sad. Yeah. It is. It is. Moving on to the back to the window again, we can see on the extreme left-hand side a tiny cottage halfway up, and that represents the story of how the clay was discovered. Is that the case?
The reason it's included is it does many things. It represents the little people. You know, who had very little. These were men of substance and standing in the community, and yet and what all, these people are reflected and represented in that cottage. And that's one aspect of it. The other side of it is that Caldwell saw that the cottages on his estate had a certain lustre when they were whitewashed. And he discovered that his tenants were mixing, they were grinding down this rock, and they were mixing it with the whitewash, and it brought out this crystal, this brightness.
This was feldspar?
Feldspar. And he had a survey done, and it was found that this rock and clay was on the estate, and that it was suitable for the production of very fine china.
Of course, pottery would have been a very big industry at that particular time, especially over in Stoke-on-Trent and places like that.
Yes, well, they brought people from Stoke-on-Trent to work here in the factory, as I said earlier. One man was William Henshaw, who brought the art of basket weaving and flower making to the pottery.
And that goes back to the window again.
That goes back to the window, and that was why I was so anxious that this man, whose work is known all over the world, would be represented, that he would be represented and reflected in the window.
He was the man, Henshaw we're talking about,
yes,
who actually gave it that distinctive pattern that people, when you think of Belleek pottery, people think of that basket weave texture, is that right? Isn't that right? So he was the man responsible.
He was the one that was responsible for bringing that art to Belleek. And if you notice the three windows, the three lights as they're called, they're actually held together with the Belleek basket, or what's known as the Henshaw basket.
That's the common motif in all three.
Yes, it pulls the three windows together and makes it one, and it also gives that great burst of light.
That's right.
Which is about God and creation and all of that.
Well, it's like the sun as well.
Yes, it is, yeah.
The skills and artistry that people like William Henshaw brought to Belleek and imparted to local people 150 years ago are still being practiced in the factory today. And a couple of things strike me as remarkable. One is the fact that so much is still done by hand, intricate, delicate and painstaking. Another is that such craft and skill seem to be genetic, for many of the people working here today have family connections going back for generations. One such is Fergus Cleary, whose grandfather was chief modeller here in the late 1800s. With Fergus, I'm in the very privileged position of being conducted on a tour of the archive, up in the attic of the factory where the moulds of the very earliest pieces of Belleek are stored. Privileged, undoubtedly, but there are certain areas of knowledge that Fergus will keep to himself.
And Belleek have their own formula for their Parian body.
Is this a secret formula?
It's a secret formula.
Seriously?
Oh, it is, yes.
Yes, right. Yeah. So you tell people, but then you have to kill them and
we don't
that sort of thing.
Well, not as bad as that. We tell them the ingredients, but don't give the actual proportions.
Yeah, it's a bit like a recipe for.
That's right, for a very nice cake.
Something like that. Yeah. I understand. Right. Up here, it's really atmospheric up here. I have to tell you, this is your museum, effectively, isn't it?
Effectively, yes, because we've moulds here dating back to the 1860s.
This is the oldest mould that Fergus has found, dating back to June 1865. The delightful surprise you get when you open the plaster of Paris casing is to find that the mould is perfectly preserved and could be used today right away. It's also, I have to say, great fun to play around with. It's a bust of John Wesley, originally modelled by William Gallimore, one of the very gifted modellers who came here from Stoke-on-Trent and left his mark upon the place in a way he wouldn't have wished for.
You think you're looking at a three-dimensional face looking out at you, don't you?
Yeah.
It's extraordinary, that effect. It really is. So he would have done, I mean, how would he have done that in the first instance? He would have actually...
He probably would have taken a block of clay and modelled it in clay first of all.
So he was a very fine sculptor and all
Yeah,
that.
well, he trained as a sculptor. He trained under one of the famous French sculptors employed in the factories in Stoke-on-Trent of the 1850s.
The optical illusion provided by these moulds, this is another one of William Gladstone for instance, was twofold. First of all, the mould itself, depending on the angle of the light, gives us a three-dimensional convex face, when it is in fact a concave shape. And when it was cast in Parian clay, it gave the illusion of being marble.
And sometimes people who didn't know any better would think that they were marble.
Well, if you looked at it, you wouldn't think. It was only when you went over and picked it up.
Because it would be hollow.
It would be hollow. Yeah.
Right. That's like a hologram, actually.
Yeah.
I was going to say that. It really is. No matter what angle you look at it, it really is. It's strange. It really has kind of an effect altogether. So your grandfather was James Cleary.
That's
and
right.
he was quite. He became the manager of the place as well. Is that
Later
the
on,
case?
he became the manager. Yes.
But tell us the story how he actually got started, because he was very young whenever he was taken on.
Yeah, he was taken on as a presser, which meant that he would press rolls of clay into moulds.
Right.
But the story is told in our family anyhow that William Gallimore was out hunting one day out in Townland about 2 miles from here, and he had a hunting accident and a shotgun went off and shot his arm off, or damaged his arm, and as a result he could only model with his left hand.
Right, so he lost the power, or he lost his right hand completely.
Lost his right arm completely, I think, the whole arm. And
a very cruel fate for a man that worked so skillfully with his hands.
He was a very skilled and artistic person. But the story is told anyhow that that my grandfather was sent to help him, and he would have only been probably a young boy at that stage, 13 or 14. He was sent to sort of help him out, and probably in things that he couldn't do, you know, maybe turning the wheel.
So he became his right hand, literally.
His right hand.
Yes.
And then obviously they got on fairly well together, and he trained him up as a model maker, model or designer.
Well, your grandfather must have had some sort of innate skill himself, or artistry that recognised, perhaps.
A couple of pieces named after him, so there are. In the archive,
literally the Cleary pieces.
Cleary cream and sugar, and the Cleary.
And these were designs he made himself as well.
Well, we think so, anyhow. You know.
Right. So I mean, it's amazing even when you watch the people downstairs doing what they do. There's a degree of artistry, a degree of craft that you really need. You need very dexterous fingers.
Well, a lot of the crafts, although things have come on obviously in the years, you know, we've got electricity and we can use some machines and that, but generally speaking, the artistry is there, and the dexterity that you need to make all these things has to be within the person.
And you've a head start in having those things if you happen to be from Belleek, which I'm not, of course. And that fact will be amply demonstrated when we return.
I'm watching your body language, you know, and you're just dying to get in.
Just dying to get it.
I don't blame you.
Okay, here's the task that Fergus Cleary has set Gillian Anderson here. Gillian must have drawn the short straw, because she has to instruct me how to do what's called a roll. That's the interwoven strands that produce that classic Belleek rope-like decoration that you see surrounding the base of the ornament. First, you get your spaghetti from the lunchbox.
Right, okay.
So you go like that.
Right, so three
strands.
3 strands, right.
You get them together and you go to the right.
Oh, look at that. That's brilliant.
And that's your roll.
That's your roll. You made
And then
that
you get
look,
your plate.
You made that look just so
easy.
You find it easy now. Do you mind me asking how long you've been doing this?
2 years.
2
but
years.
I'm 9 years here in the company.
Right, so you're doing different things before
Yeah,
that,
I've
were
been
you?
finishing, so I have.
Right, okay.
So
That's
really,
terrific. That's
you
so
try?
easy. Aye, no problem. I don't even know why I should even bother trying at all. It's so easy looking.
you get your clay out.
Right, the clay out, and then get it lined up like that.
Yes. Nip them on the sides.
Nip it on the sides. And then, see, now, on both.
This hand goes to the left and this hand's to the right. So you're going left, right.
Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on. That one's going that way.
Yes.
And this one's coming this way. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right, so just. I'm afraid to make the first move in case it's a bad one. Hold on, oh, here we go.
You get
What part of your hand do you
together.
put on it?
Your finger.
Your finger?
Just your fingers.
Okay, right,
You
sorry.
go like that.
Right, you've more or less done that one already then, haven't you?
Yeah, all right. Yep.
Why is the centre not doing the right
Yes.
thing for me? Is that
Nice.
it? That came off.
Oh, you're all right. No. We'll try again.
I thought here, tell you what, I'll try it myself first.
As you can tell, this might take some time. So whilst Gillian contemplates handing in her notice while persevering with me, there's a chance for a quick visit to one of the modern-day versions of Gallimore, Henshaw and Cleary, in the form of Belleek designer Magella McManus, who not only has to have the imagination and taste of a designer, but also, as you'll see, the skill of a craftsman.
So this is drawn to scale, is it to the full size, no?
It would be drawn to scale, and then when it comes to the lathe, we would increase it by 15% for the shrinkage of the clay.
All right, you have to allow for that, in other words.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I notice you're holding a pair of calipers here. Is that what you do for measuring, in other words?
Yes, we would use this for measuring.
So when you go from this stage here, right, do you have to submit your drawings then to somebody else to say, well, we'll go for this, or do you do the finished article first of all and say, what do you think?
There would be a selection of people would see it, or sales people would watch or have a look at it,
Yes.
and then they would decide whether they want to proceed.
Okay. So have you done things, if you don't mind me asking you this, have you done designs, people say, no, I'm sorry, go back to the drawing board?
Definitely,
Yes, seriously?
definitely.
Well, how would you describe your taste or your style?
I think my style would be a bit more kind of earthy, so it would vary towards, you know,
Less-
back to student days in our college.
Right. So less flowery and less fancy,
Definitely
perhaps?
less flowery.
Right,
yeah.
okay. But you're making this for a particular market.
I am.
Having designed the piece to scale on paper, Magella then has to recreate it in three-dimensional form, using the calipers to transfer the measurements onto what starts out being a solid block of plaster of Paris, and then some deft chisel work as the block spins on the lathe. This is where it can all go horribly wrong, especially if you allow somebody like me near it.
What am I doing wrong?
That shuddering noise is what we don't want.
Right. Why is it shuddering? Because it's so me coming with this here. No?
Yeah, no, you're not holding the chisel straight enough.
I see. Right. I know what you mean.
You're doing great.
You can go another wee
How is it
bit.
again? I feel it's stuck. Why is it going on sideways on me? Is that okay there now? You're down. I can see you're just down.
I'm dying to get at it.
I'm just noticing, by the way, that that's very badly done here. And that's a bit I did, isn't that the case?
It is the bit we did.
Don't pull any punches now. This is so smooth and this bit here is all ridged. And that's where the shuddering
That's where the
was.
shuddering happened.
What was it doing exactly wrong? I mean,
It's just kind of bouncing around in the piece.
I wasn't holding it firm enough, in other words.
Yes.
Right. You know, I mean, feel free to use that in future
I think
for
it
your
would make a
designs.
nice texture to it.
Nice texture indeed. That's what I was aiming for.
Thankfully, this was only a demonstration of the piece that Magella has made earlier. The shape perfected and the plant motif carved out by hand. And then the mould is made. The mould that will turn out thousands of identical pieces.
And the end result, well, nearly the end result,
Nearly the end result.
is something like this,
Yeah.
which I think is absolutely beautiful. It really is. This is a smaller version.
This smaller version, it shrinks down by 15%. You can see the size difference between the two.
So that is
This
simply
is
that
that.
shrunk.
Yeah.
Right. That's quite a. What did you say? 15.